Diving stop to his right, J.P. Crawford, the throw to first, and he got him. Holy smokes, what a play by Crawford.
Strike three call, got him.
Out to center again.
Keep carrying, baby, keep carrying.
Goodbye, baseball.
The world has got to take notice of this Mariners ball club.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are Tridents Up. We thank you so much for tuning in. We have a really exciting episode for you today. I think it's fair to really start heading into our main discussion. This is one that, Max, you and I have had quite a bit, and it's just one that we love to talk about. Recently, in the last couple of weeks, Bryce Harper came out with some comments regarding the Olympics. He was very passionate about it and made lots of claims that players should be able to go just to expand the game and just get it out there even more. And, I'll start out with my opinions on the matter. I'm a big fan of sending Major League Baseball players to the Olympics. Obviously, baseball has now been in the Olympics since 2008. So we're looking at over a 10-year period without baseball being in the national spotlight worldwide. And so now with the games being in Tokyo, every host city gets to pick around 2 to 4 games that they want to be added into the Olympics. And they picked baseball and softball as 2 of them. And so that to me made a lot of sense. And I think that just when you think about countries who love the game of baseball, Japan, you could argue, is number 2.
I would agree with that 100%. Yes.
Yeah, and you think about just how passionate they are about baseball.
Actually, I think the Latin countries can really push them forward
absolutely.
Too. But if you're talking about from a broader perspective, I think that Japan definitely stands out. Yeah, go on though.
Absolutely. I mean, they're fantastic fans, and I think that just getting to put your best players in the national spotlight would just do wonders for the game. It would really just, I think, bring in a lot of fans because there are very few opportunities that you have to have the game broadcasted on a worldwide scale where every single nation is receiving the speed. And I think it would just really bring the younger generation maybe into the game. Obviously, that's something that the MLB has really tried to get at is the younger generation. And having those players in the Olympics, I think, would do a great job. I mean, we saw the passion that was in the World Baseball Classic a couple years back. And since then, I don't think I've ever seen as passionate baseball played since then. I mean, I still get goosebumps when I see the final out recorded and Adam Jones is just sliding his hand under the USA. Or when he makes that catch against Manny Machado.
Yeah.
Or when, Nelson Cruz hits that home run. I mean, you and I watched a couple of those games, and there really was nothing like it.
No doubt about that, Bohn. And I think the Olympics would take that energy and, take it and make it times 10, times 1,000. I think it'd be very special, and I think MLB could kill 2 birds with 1 stone in this case. Not only are you attracting the younger audience, but we've seen them try to go to London, Japan, Mexico City, Puerto Rico, and so forth to try and expand awareness and interest in the game. Well, the Olympics is the perfect example for this, Bohn, because everyone is going to be watching all around the world. And I think that's so special and something that you can't really do, in any other circumstance. Sure, you can send players to London or Japan and have them play there, but it's not the same, especially when you can see that type of adrenaline that the players show and the type of energy and personality. That's a big thing we've also seen MLB trying to, emphasize more on, is showing players more player personality. And when you see Adam Jones and Marcus Stroman, pounding their chest, showing the U.S. pride or dancing around off the mound, that's what the younger audience wants to see. And it could show the world what baseball is capable of, especially in America. And there's no doubt in my mind that American baseball is the best baseball on the planet.
Absolutely. I mean, there really is nothing like it.
And let me clarify something right there. I'm not necessarily saying Americans playing baseball. I'm saying baseball in America is the best on the planet.
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing like playing on the national stage of Major League Baseball. When it happens, unfortunately, obviously not happening right now, but when it happens, there really is nothing like it.
And imagine Shohei Ohtani pitching against Mike Trout, just
That'd be so cool.
everything that goes into it, the circumstances and so forth. I mean, I know we talked about Bryce Harper and how he's very vocal about it. I mean, there's a chance, Bohn, I think he will make the team just if they do it, just because of how vocal he's been. But, if you look at that outfield, well, who do we got going out there? Christian Yelich, Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, Aaron Judge, Cody Bellinger. Are you kidding me? The pitching staff, Jacob deGrom, Garrett Cole, Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, so many more names on that list. It is endless, and that is what would be so cool about it, to see those players. And there is something about playing for your country. You mentioned that we haven't seen passion like we saw in the WBC, like we have in the World Series. And I think we do see passion in the World Series, but it's a different kind. It's almost like you're playing for that city, and you're playing with the teammates that, for a lot of cases, you've come up through the organization with. But when you're playing for your country, it's a different story, because all of you kind of are coming from the same scenario. You have that connection, whether it's from the Dominican and coming up and, working as hard as you can to play baseball and make money for your family, or it's America and you're coming up and you're playing with your guys and so forth. And a lot of these guys know each other very well. It's something special, and it's a bond that, you can't really create on a Major League Baseball roster.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really special. I mean, you talk about just the national pride that comes from representing your nation in sport. I mean, it's just incredible. And I mean, just watching any Olympic sport, you can see the emotion. And you talk about just the lineup and the rotation that we would have. I mean, one of the most famous teams ever in sports history is the dream team of the Olympics that the USA had in basketball back in the 90s. And I think that, I mean, you think about the team that the USA could put together for the MLB, and that could be like our dream team, you know, like baseball's dream team. And just to see that come together, I think would be really cool. But, something else that I just thought of about that, another thing that could really be great about the Olympics is that, think about some of these players in foreign countries who really have a tough time getting recognized, and they get to compete for their team on a national spotlight. That could possibly lead to a more diverse league at the end of the day, because
Are you talking
find all
about
these hidden
guys?
talents.
Are you talking about guys in the MLB or not in the MLB?
Not in the MLB currently.
Yeah, and I think either way, those guys would be going to the Olympics as long as their teams qualify. For example, like Israel, Panama. I think in Israel, for their team, I'm pretty sure Danny Valencia and Ian Kinsler were going to play for them, and they were retired. We saw the WBC, Ryan Dempster and Ryan Rowland-Smith coming back out of retirement too. But I think with those players, they definitely will be playing no matter what. And I think that's what's special, especially for like guys out of Cuba, Panama, the Dominican, or maybe not if we see MLB rosters go, the Dominican will probably be full of that.
Yeah.
But for the teams that, don't have as much representation, are Colombia and stuff like that. I think Colombia, the biggest name on them when they were in the WBC was Jose Quintana. When they don't have the same representation, it is a great opportunity for them to get their names out there and, kind of put on a display to maybe attract some scouts and some teams to sign them in Major League Baseball. And we have to remember that a lot of these players can still come from MLB organizations. It's just, I believe it's off the 40-man roster at this point, as if the Olympics happen this year, and we'll see how they adjusted as it was pushed back to next summer. But something I do want to talk about, Bohn, and I'm going to be honest, I think I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, and I think it's against what all fans want. And I would like to establish first, in a perfect world, I would love this. I think you more than anyone know how much I love the passion shown by players when, Felix was always pounding his chest as a kid, or back in the early 2010s. Me as a kid, I was always doing that on the baseball field because I loved it. I loved that personality, that energy, because as a fan, we can feed off of that energy as well, and it makes it 1,000 times better. But unfortunately, at this point, with how things are going, especially with the feuds between the owners and the MLB Players Association, I don't know if it's going to work, Bohn, just because why would the owners want to let their players go and play for another team and potentially risk injury? And again, remember, we're talking about Bryce Harper, who's owed $27 million per year. Mike Trout, who's owed like $36 million per year. Garrett Cole, whose contract is, the highest for any pitcher of all time, I'm pretty sure. Why would Cashman and all of these GMs want to let their players go get hurt? And I just think that's really going to hold them back from doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that really is the biggest concern. I mean, across America and the sports leagues that are here, with the NBA and the NHL, that has always been a big problem. And with the MLB is taking that risk. And for some, it's like, do we need to pause our season? Like with the
I think
NHL,
that
that's
will
something.
absolutely happen. But the
Yeah, and
question
I
is,
think it will too.
yeah,
You
if they
know,
do it, I think that they couldn't do it without a pause. But I think the bigger
mhm.
issue lies in the fact that even if you do pause, you know, a player could go over there and one get hurt for the remainder of the season, which could be season altering, or he could, God forbid, tear his UCL or pull his or tear his ACL or his UCL, and that could be franchise and career altering for those players. And you and I've talked about it. Maybe the only potential way for it to work would be that the contracts would be renegotiated
Yeah.
afterwards. And, that wouldn't stop a player from potentially getting hurt, but it would help the owners save their money and maybe potentially, convince them more to let the players go over. My question is, do we think that's realistic? Do we think that could happen?
I think there is a good chance it can, just considering that because of the pandemic going on, the Olympics have been pushed back a year. And I believe in December of this year, or I guess January of 2021, is when the collective bargaining agreement will end. And so that opens this whole new window to maybe rework a couple things. And maybe that's something that needs to be addressed, is if they can get a CBA done that has something surrounding the Olympics in place, that could be huge in getting these players to go to the Olympics. So I think, as you and I have talked about, reworking in the contract in a way saying, I understand getting players to sign off on something along the lines of, if I go to the Olympics, I understand I will lose money if I get hurt, or something along those lines.
Yeah, and just my question is that I don't know if the players would even agree to that. Well, from the owner's perspective, that seems reasonable. Based on like the conversations we've been seeing happening now with Corona, players want their guaranteed money. They're not going to
Mm-hmm.
stand back from that. So if a player has to pose the question to himself, should I be able to go play in the Olympics or do I have to renegotiate my contract? One, I don't know. I think a lot of them would back out in that case. But two, I don't even think they want to be in that situation in the first place, which really I think would create more conflict, and it already has. But something interesting, and I want to discuss this with you, and I know I talked to you about this already, but I want to get deeper into it, is that, we talked about how they could potentially renegotiate the contracts, but, the players might say, hey, no, we're not doing that, but you should still let us go over. And I feel like, the biggest fear for the Players Association and the players as a union in general is the salary cap, right? And with the salary cap, they're saying you can't limit how much we're getting paid. Because of that, owners are spending more and more money because players are demanding more and more money. But at the same time, I feel like if they go into this saying, hey, look, we want to go overseas, but we don't want to renegotiate our contracts, then the owners might gain leverage over them in that argument by saying, okay, well, you don't want us to give you a salary cap, so you don't want us to underpay you, but at the same time, you won't let us renegotiate these massive deals you're making us give you if you get hurt in another uniform. And I just wonder how that conversation would go down and who would win that argument, because I don't know whose side to choose in this situation. I don't know who's right or wrong, but I don't know who would win, especially with the trends we're seeing the last couple weeks or so with the Players Association and the owners.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a messy fight for sure. And it's something, knowing that the CBA is expiring soon, I think that that's something that's always has loomed over our heads as fans, as this could be very similar to 1994. And again, we were thinking that before this pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And so now this pandemic rolls around and we see how this is going currently. And I think that, I mean, obviously the main goal is to try to bring back Major League Baseball. And so you got to wonder if they're even going to be willing to discuss the Olympics if they don't even have the MLB underway. And I don't know if
It's a great
I don't
point.
know if they will be willing to discuss that if they can't even get their own league running. Because you got to wonder, if the MLB season is not happening, can players willingly choose to go over?
I wonder. That would be wild. And I'd imagine by the time of next season, it should be back and running. But imagine if it was well, I know Corona hit and everything, and it definitely won't happen. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very unlikely that ever would have happened with the circumstances right now. Like, imagine if, Major League Baseball was stopped, but the Olympics wasn't. Would players be
Right.
training to go play in the Olympics right now? I don't know.
Yeah, that's
And
what
would
I'm
they be
kinda
allowed
wondering.
to?
Mhm.
Probably not, because they would probably still be renegotiating, trying to get baseball back. But I do wonder, in this other parallel universe where they already guaranteed no baseball, Major League Baseball this season, and there was an Olympics, maybe players would try to go. But at the end of the day, I think that the relationship between the PA and the owners, while it always has been, a unique relationship to say the least, I think it's definitely been wounded or tainted even more. And I just think that might play a role going into the future, especially if they're trying to get this. And I think both sides are incredibly stubborn. And the Players Association is very powerful too. And that has to do a lot with, the leadership and the control and just how baseball has been run for the last 50 to 60, 100 years or so. And I don't think the Olympics are going to happen anytime soon, at least. If you were going to ask me right now, I don't think the players will agree to have their contracts renegotiated, just given the fact that they, are so stubborn about guaranteed contracts, whether Corona or not. I'm just talking about in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, what'll be interesting is, let's say by 2021, by the summer, this pandemic rolls by and there's like a cure or something happens. And I think that there's a really solid chance of that happening by then.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say that happens, but the players aren't able to negotiate a new CBA and there's a strike going on. Could they go to the Olympics?
I wonder, because I wonder if there's anything in their contracts that say if there's no baseball going on, if they're like, because think about it, they are under contract to play for that team, and therefore they have to follow the rules of the league and the team. But if they're on strike, do those rules go out the window? I don't know. Or maybe they do go, and maybe they lose their contract or something like that. Maybe they're suspended. I don't know what goes on, but that'd be something really interesting to see. And I wonder how players would react to that, especially since, like, there's no baseball going on at that point. So, like, they're going to want to play baseball really bad,
Yeah, and they might go. And I don't think there's anything that could get in their way.
Besides the fact that maybe their contract might be, taken back by the team.
Yeah, might say something that could prohibit.
See, here's the
them from
thing,
doing
though.
so.
And I know if you're Bryce Harper, you don't want to ruin your relationship with the Phillies. In fact, I think he loves it there based on what he's, talked about on certain podcasts. And, in the last game of the season, he took a microphone and talked to all the fans, said a nice speech. I think he loves it there. But would he be willing to sacrifice that contract, knowing that he still will make probably a lot of money from another team if they theoretically released him? This is incredibly hypothetical.
Yeah.
But let's say they did release him. I wonder if he'd say, you know what, maybe I won't get the $300+ million I got from the Phillies, but if he wants to play in the Olympics that bad and would willing to sign with another team, for maybe somewhere upwards towards 150 million, 200 million, would he take that? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I personally wouldn't want to fracture my relationship with any fan base, and especially the Philadelphia fan base, but something to think about for sure.
Yeah, but then again, Philly isn't in the United States. So if they win Olympic gold, then I almost think that makes them love him more.
But if he never comes back to the Phillies and almost like backstabs him?
Yeah, if his contract gets terminated.
That's what I'm saying.
If his contract doesn't get terminated, he's able to go to the Olympics.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about that. In any case, yes, he is representing the Phillies, and they love him extra for that. And then Philly, with how patriotic they are anyway, are going to love the fact that he won the Olympics for him. But I'm saying in the theoretic world that he's not allowed to leave for the Olympics in a potential strike. Hopefully it doesn't happen.
Okay.
But I think I would be mad if my player was on strike and then all of a sudden just left when he wasn't supposed to go play in the Olympics, and then all of a sudden the contract was pulled back.
Right. That'd be wild.
It would get really political, I'll tell you that. And if you want to talk about politics in baseball, then just rewatch the last month, and you'll get a ton of that. But it has been stressful, and I think the more this coronavirus negotiations the more the negotiations have gone on, the more I've learned about the relationship between the Players Association and the owners. And the biggest takeaway is that it's not a healthy relationship. They're both very stubborn, and they both are going to fight for whatever they want. And because of that, at this point, especially with the timetable of less than a year to figure it out, I don't think the Olympics are happening next summer, but hopefully in the future, and hopefully they can figure it out at some point.
Yeah. That'd be wonderful. Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for watching this episode of Tridents Up as we were here talking about the Olympics. Tune into our next episode. As always, we have exciting stuff coming up. For Max, I am Bohn. Thank you all so much for watching. Y'all have a great